the study of the previous 5 chapters, I believe that you have mastered the main concepts, principles, and strategies of conservation and reuse of historical buildings, and have the ability to face the future protection design of historical buildings. Now, in Chapter 6, we will study the practice of protection and reuse of historic buildings. In this chapter, combined with 2 cases of reconstruction, Jiapingwa Literature and Art Museum and Liu Hongdian Architecture Museum, I will explain 4 parts, that is, the preliminary investigation of the protection and reuse design, the overall design and expression of the protection and reuse design, the deepening of the structure of the protection and reuse scheme, and the design and expression of space reconstruction for protection and reuse. With the study of this chapter, I hope that students can master the whole process of historical building protection design, and can independently complete each stage of drawing expression. Now we will study the first section, preliminary investigation of historical building protection and reuse. Historical building protection design is a mode of renewal and reuse of existing building in a city. Therefore, we should investigate the current situation of existing buildings and their historical environment, which must be done before design and reconstruction. The preliminary investigation stage mainly consists of 5 parts: historical research, photo compilation, building mapping, building inspection, and comprehensive evaluation. First, let's look at the first part, historical research. Historical research is a study of the history of buildings, understanding and mastering the past of buildings and their activities. Historical research includes the following 3 aspects: basic information of architecture, construction and property rights changes, social, historical, and cultural background. Let's take the project of transforming the printing factory of Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology into Jiapingwa Literature and Art Museum as an example to explain historical research. First, let's look at the basic information of the building, which mainly includes the building profile list, the building condition description, the building map, the building protection value, positioning, and the related important materials. The building profile list mainly includes the document number of the project, the district street and the door number, the historical building protection type and name. Taking the Jiapingwa Literature and Art Museum as an example, the number via unknown, the district in Beilin district of Xi'an City. The door number is on the campus of Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology. The type is the industrial building. Then the name of the building is the printing factory of Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology. This is the basic overview of the historical building to be renovated. The second basic information is the description of the construction condition. It is a supplement to the architectural profile. It is mainly a brief overview of the building location, the facade, and some conditions of the interior. Let's look at the appearance of the printing factory of Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology from the Jianshe East Road outside the campus. Before the renovation, the printing factory is a very simple 2-story small building, partially 3-story, brick concrete structure, partially frame. The surface is a non-decorated brick wall and the outside is painted green and gray. The interior is divided into 1 to 3 different rooms. The largest space is the first floor printing shop. This is the description of the state of the historic building. The third basic information is the building map. The maps of buildings generally include the following types. The first is the general plan of the building, which expresses the historic building and the surrounding streets, buildings, and environment, etc. And then there's a map of protected areas. In addition to the historic building itself, there should be a certain area of protection. Relevant laws and regulations limit an area in which acts or construction harmful to the historic building are prohibited. If the renovation you are targeting is not a building, but a complex, you need a historic building classification map. We take Beijing 751 plant building classification map as an example. Orange area is recommended for preservation. Green area is the building is to be demolished. The fourth basic information is the positioning of the value of building protection. When we are positioning the value of historic building protection, we should use drawing to identify the historic building in the building group, which is the specific value of protection, and add a written explanation to make it convenient for us to reflect the different historical heritage and function in the future protection and restoration work. Let's take Beijing 798 factory area as an example. It divided the historic buildings into 3 levels and set the value for each kind of protected buildings. The fifth basic information is some important information that needs to be related. If you have more important information at the time of collection, you can put it here. The above is a research of basic information about historic buildings. The second thing we need to investigate is the status of building and property rights changes. For the printing factory of Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology, because it belongs to Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology all the time, its property right has not changed. If the property rights of the renovation project you are facing has changed, you need to investigate clearly. The third subject to investigation is the social, historical, and cultural background of historic buildings. Let's still take Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology printing factory as an example. As the only building in the 1970s on campus, it is an indispensable memory. The building of the printing factory has been included in the school's demolition list many times. In the 1990s, the plan of the new campus was to demolish the printing factory and build 2 high-rise residential buildings on the original site. But due to the shortage of funds at that time, only one was built on the east side, and the printing factory as the construction house remained. In 2001, the school again planned to demolish the building and open it to green space. However, the administrative building on the southwest side of the base was rebuilt, so the old printing house was used as a temporary administrative office and was once again retained. Such a building of great historical significance to the school escaped the fate of being demolished time and time again, and finally gained a new life in the reconstruction in 2006. This is a research on the social, historical, and cultural background. Now I will introduce the method and data types of historical research. The method of investigation mainly include official databases, archives, libraries, interviews, internet, local markets, etc. For example, if you want to investigate the drawings of the building, we can go to the internet, interviews, or the city archives to get them. You need to investigate the type of data to take different media. The above is the introduction to the historical research. Now, let's look at the second part of the preliminary research, the compilation of photographs. This part should be familiar to us. In the study of new projects before, every time we get a project, we have to go to the base site to take pictures and summarize the photos. Here we still take the printing factory as an example. First, let's take a bird's eye view of an outdoor scene in the 1970s before its reconstruction. After that, we collected its outdoor environment before the renovation in 2006. The 3 rows next to the building, a collection of photos of the printing factory from different angles, the building details of the factory, and the surrounding buildings. And we also compiled the photos from the interior. Therefore, a summary of photos is necessary for our future transformation. This is a compilation of the photos. The third part of preliminary investigation is to map the building. Of course, we can find an original drawing to proofread, but you should know, before 2000, our project is basically a hand-drawn blueprint. It is difficult to find in the city's archival management. Even if the original drawings are found, it needs to be compiled with current situation, the revised drawings before the reconstruction. This is the first and second floor plan drawn by surveying and mapping before the printing factory was transformed. Here I will review the steps of surveying and mapping learned in the course of surveying and mapping of historical buildings. That is, we will first measure the historical building on the spot and come back to sort out the sketches and finally complete the official drawings of the building, surveying and mapping. This is about the third part of building mapping. The fourth part is about building inspection. Building inspection is a very important step to the reuse design of historical buildings. Because historical buildings have experienced some process such as maintenance, expansion, reconstruction, or addition, we must master historical building through professional inspection means. Do its components still have carrying capacity? Are there any safety concerns? Such kind of questions. Generally speaking, the inspection agency will form a text report, which is a direct basis for the preservation and restoration of historical buildings, providing important support for the subsequent design and constructions. The fifth part is the comprehensive evaluation of project. The first is value assessment, including architectural and historical humanistic values. The printing factory was built in the 1970s, and the overall appearance is unremarkable, located in the historical area of the campus. However, the printing factory is a product of history and has special historical value. The school is a place to pass on history and educate newcomers. There are 3 ways to education in school: teaching by words, teaching by example, and teaching on the environment. As a memory carrier, architecture maintains the emotion of students and the school. Every building on campus is describing a continuous and irreplaceable human history. The building of the printing factory maintains a continuous historical chain representing the history and the reality of the school in 1970s and should not be forgotten. The second assessment is about the preservation assessment. The printing factory has relatively good preservation status and structure bearing capacity, but it needs to be partial cut and increased to meet new functions. Exterior facade is simple, doors and buildings are damaged and need to be replaced. The non-decorated brick walls of the old building are also very consistent with the characteristics of Mr. Jia Pinghua himself. The third assessment is hazard analysis, including natural forces and man-made damage. Due to the natural forces, doors, windows, and roofs are aging and need to be replaced. Man-made damage. The printing factory was later used as graduate school office, but it was only used partially, and the problem of man-made damage was not great. The above is the contents of preliminary investigation on the protection and design of historical buildings, mainly taking the printing factory in Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology as an example. In the next class, we will study the reusing design idea and drawing expression of the printing factory in view of the results of the preliminary investigation.